Welcome to the MTSS Monday Minute for June 20th, 2022. We're going to use the same video framework that we used last week: exploration, perspectives and resources, and wrap up. For today's video, I want to talk a little bit about resource mapping. So consider this. For your exploration, I want you to consider that 75% of your MTSS is a combination of organization of resources and established decision rules, which are both done before students ever walk into your building. A very common pitfall to efficient MTSS is sorting and labeling resources before data analysis happens. Now, why is this an issue? Well, there are probably a variety of ways that this is an issue, but today I want to talk about three. The first is that expensive resources may be underutilized, which includes our educators. Number two, students must fail to a certain degree before certain resources could have helped them sooner. And another potential issue is three. This creates a system that we try to fit kids into rather than creating a system that fits for the students that we have today. Perspectives and resources. So consider that resources aren't just curriculums or dollars. In an efficient MTSS, the lens for what is a resource and how to maximize that resource actually gets much wider and begins to incorporate some of the other things that we have available to us, such as time, people, facility, data sources, and community. A vital component to an effective MTSS is to engage in the process of resource mapping. Now, why is this so vital? Again, there's probably a multitude of reasons why this is a vital component to an effective MTSS, but I want to talk about three here as well. So the first is that resource mapping improves the ability to respond to all student needs in a fast and highly targeted manner. The second is that resource mapping creates equity of access to materials that might otherwise be reserved for certain levels of failure. And the third is that resource mapping fosters learning environments that favors learning over grouping or identifications. So there's a book called Leading Equity-Based MTSS for All Students, and it was published in 2020 by a couple of authors out of the University of Kansas named Amy McCart and Don Miller. And this book is a pretty comprehensive tool for building out and evaluating MTSS practices. So whether you are starting from scratch or if you've been at it for a while, this book can really be a great resource for assessing the hard work that you've already done and also helping you to figure out where to start if you have not been doing MTSS or incorporating a multi-tiered system into your school for some time. And so McCart and Miller really take a nice mix of theory and action and walks the reader through this thought of how to do MTSS in your school. And they break it down into 4 chapters. And I would argue that these chapters are pretty digestible. It's a relatively quick read as you're reading through. And then, of course, you would slow down to do some of the implementation strategies that they recommend in the book. And ultimately, the book is broken down into 4 steps, and these also correspond with the chapters of the book. And so chapter 1, or step 1, is map your resources, and they walk you through a process of how to do that. Chapter 2, or step 2, is to frame your plan for decision making and communicate it with your stakeholders. And again, they walk you through a process of how to do that. Step 3 is to master your master schedule. Again, they walk you through steps on how to do that. And then step 4 is to establish a consistent resource matching system. And you guessed it, they walk you through a process for how to do that as well. And so to wrap up today's video, I would encourage you to explore Amy and Dawn's work. As practitioners, they have helped to build an open source resource online for schools. And it varies in stages from the very beginning of MTSS implementation to schools that may be farther along in implementation. And they have resources that cover pre-K all the way up through grade 12. And so you may want to take a moment to explore that resource, and you can get there by going to swiftschools.org. Now, while you're at Swift Schools, you can explore their tool library, and many of the tools that you can explore are also free to download. And many of the tools available also align with the content of the leading equity-based MTSS book that I mentioned a few slides ago. And to finally wrap up, don't forget to get your minutes counted. So after you're done exploring the Swift Schools tool library, come on back here and add a comment in the description box and let us know what you found out that you might be willing to try and use this upcoming school year.